Stephen Crane was born in the year 1841 in New Jersey. His father, Jonathan Townley Crane, was a pastor in several Methodist churches. His mother, Mary Helen Peck Crane, gave birth to 13 other children, in which 4 would die at a very young age. Stephen started to write when he was 4, and by 16, he had several news articles published. Eventually, he later dropped out of college to become a full-time writer. His first book, Maggie, A Girl from the Streets, wasn't a successful book. Many critics thought the book was quite vulgar or crude. Stephen then would silently publish the book. But then one day, Stephen became fascinated with reading the Century magazine, where it would talk about famous battles during the Civil War. Stephen became quite frustrated with these stories since it would always talk about what soldiers did rather than what they thought or how they felt. Stephen would then state, "I wonder that some of those fellows didn't tell how they felt in those scraps. They spout enough of what they did, but they're as emotionless as rocks." But right at that moment, he got an idea. What if he made his own war novel about the fears, feelings, and truths about the soldiers of war? And that's exactly what he did. Because Stephen was hired as a freelance writer for New York newspapers, he would write his newly found idea from midnight to 5 in the morning, while he lived with his brother in New Jersey. Eventually, he wrote a 55,000-word manuscript called Private Fleming / His Various Battles. But in order to keep the book more relevant to his modern times, he renamed the manuscript to be called The Red Badge of Courage, an episode of the American Civil War. In 1984, Stephen sent the manuscript to Samuel Sidney McClure, who held the manuscript for 6 months without publishing it. Frustrated, Stephen retrieved his writing back from Samuel and sent the manuscript instead to Addison Irving Bekeller, who made an 18,000-word short version of The Red Badge of Courage to newspapers that went around to 200 cities. Then, when the actual book was published in 1895, 30 years after the Civil War and during the start of the Victorian era, several parts of the story were removed, such as the endings for chapters 7, 10, and 15, while also completely removing the 12th chapter, which totaled to about 50,000 words. But even with these cuts, The Red Badge of Courage did phenomenal in terms of success. The book was highly praised by other writers and critics and made Stephen famous. The Red Badge of Courage was modeled after the Battle of Chancellorsville, the second bloodiest war during the Civil War, right behind the famous Battle of Antietam, which in one day, both the Union and the Confederacy faced 22,700 casualties, while Chancellorsville faced 27,000 total casualties over the course of 7 days. During the book, the Union men thought that their leaders had no idea what they were doing. Some examples would be that they would march back and forth several times, or retreat from battle after enduring heavy combat. One of these soldiers was named Henry Fleming, our main character. Henry is a very ambitious young man, as he would fantasize about being a soldier. After joining the Union Army at 18, he would go through the process of war throughout the book. Henry didn't exactly have the same worries as the other soldiers had, well, as far as he knows. One of Henry's main struggles is isolation. Most other soldiers seem already confident or just hide their own stress or fear. Henry does have a fear of his own that is shared throughout his arc. Henry is afraid of being afraid. He would always wonder if he would run away from the heat of battle, or maybe if his own fantasy of actually being brave during war was just a fallacy. Whichever the answer is, Henry draws a conclusion that he had not enlisted of his free will. Henry believes that he's been tricked into joining the army, since he would have seen soldiers marching in the sunlight, giving them a prestige of bravery that wasn't really there. Whether Henry believes it or not, he's in the army now, and whatever fantasy he has about himself or how war should be is about to be tested. Henry actually does well during battle. He's pretty confident, stands his ground and pushes back the Confederates, and after battle he celebrates with his comrades. Although, the Confederates come back again, and thinking that the Union soldiers will be overwhelmed, Henry runs for his life. Of course, Henry tries to justify running away as a rational and smart thing to do. That was, of course, until he comes back to the battlefield where he sees a dead body on the ground. At this point, reality sets in for Henry, and he is filled with shame for running away. But as Henry returns, he runs into retreating Union soldiers, in which one of the men whacks Henry in the head with the butt of a rifle. When Henry recovers, he goes back to his comrades, and when they see Henry's wound, his comrades think he got his injury from battle. No one thinks he ran away. When Henry eventually goes back into battle, he redeems himself. He fights courageously, and after the flag bearer can't carry his flag anymore, Henry helps carry the flag of his raiment the most honorable spot in the army, which showed that Henry does actually have bravery. As victory is on the horizon, the narrator points out that Henry has learned that he has faced death. He's learned that death is a part of life and has reached a level of maturity with his own bravery. As we learn from the Red Badge of Courage, fear is something to be admired and looked up to, and something we should all inspire to do, to push through hard times with bravery. And if you enlist in the army, or decide what job you want to do or what time you want to go to bed, you always have a choice to make, even if there are outside forces that would inspire energy or thoughts inside of you. I hope this was a decent book overview for the Red Badge of Courage, and I hope to see you next time.